regards to the external audit, now the external audit is something that we need to look into on identifying and also evaluating the trends and events beyond the control of a particular firm. So which means that the external audit is something that you want to look into on the external environment, which you are not in control with. And also try to reveal the key opportunities and threats, okay? Because in the external environment, you will look into two things. Those are the opportunities and threats that might affect the organization. So if they can identify what are the opportunities and threats, then the managers and also the members of the organization can devise strategies in order to seize on the opportunities and also to reduce the impact or avoid the threats that the company might face. So the external audit, basically, I repeat again, is something got to do with something that is beyond your control. We're supposed to think those are the opportunities and threats. Now, what are the nature of an external audit? The external audit the purpose is to look into the key variables that offer actionable responses based on the strategy that you devise, okay? And the firm basically are able to respond to either offensively or defensively to the factors by formulating strategies and devise the policies that take the advantage of the external opportunities and minimize the impact of the potential threats. And then when you look into the models of the comprehensive strategic plan, the external audits are something that is in this model. Okay, when you look at the model of comprehensive strategic management model, and then you see here that my cursor here, this is where you do the external audit, and then the type of strategies that you try to develop are also based on what you're going to look into later on, based on the external audit. Same goes to the internal audit. Okay, after this we'll look into the internal audits. Now, the key external forces can be categorized into 5 major categories. One is the economic forces, and number 2 are the social, cultural, demographic, and natural environment forces. And number 3 is the political, governmental, and legal forces. And also number 4 is the technological forces. And then lastly is the competitive forces. Okay, now the relationship between the key external forces and the firm, basically the organization, you can look into the diagram that is on the screen. When you look into the economic forces and also the social, cultural, demographic, and natural environment forces, political, legal, and governmental forces, technological forces, and competitive forces, it affects the competitors, suppliers, okay, the distributors, creditors, customers, employees, communities, and also the managers, stockholders, labor union, government, trade association, special interest groups, product, service, market, natural environment, which the firm or the organization engage with. This external environment, can you see my cursor here? This external environment, okay, this external environment will affect the key variables that the organization normally engage with, and the organization will look into the opportunities and threats out of this from these variables because of the pressure of the external environment. Are you clear with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Prof.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No, yeah. Now, when you do the process of performing an external audit, this is the normal process. That is to get as many information as possible. And this information, we can say that you try to gather the comparative intelligence and also the informations about the economics, social, cultural, demographic, environmental, political, governmental, legal, and technological trends. You look into all this, get the information out of all these variables, out of these factors, okay? Then the information from what I mentioned here earlier on just now should be assimilated and evaluated. Should be assimilated and evaluated, and then you screen off, take out the information out of that, and create a final list of the most important key external factor that should be communicated. That should be communicated. Now, in this context, okay, in this context, the industrial organization IO view, the IO view, industrial organization view, approach to competitive advantage advocates that they're thinking that the external environment of the industry are more important than the internal factors in a firm for gaining and sustaining competitive advantage. This is one school of thoughts. They said the external environment is more important than the internal environment. And this school of thoughts, we call them as the industrial organization, the IO view. The IO view. Now, I mentioned earlier on just now, various things in economic forces. One of the factors that you need to understand are the economic forces. They might affect the organization, and it is key player that they engage with. Now, look into some of these variables in economics items in these economic forces. One is the shift to service economy. And now, most of the business, they shift to service economy, and also looking into the availability of credits that the financier might be providing to the organization, and level of disposal income. Thus, the market has sufficient disposal income for the product, for anything which enable them to buy, and also propensity of people to spend. Okay, propensity of people to spend, and also the interest rate. Okay. Interest rate it is related to the banks and the national banks policy, whether they increase or reduce the interest rate. Interest rates of what? Normally interest rates are associated to the charges for the principal that people gain from the financial, particularly the bankers and the financial institutions, in order to finance their business. When they want to finance the business of eventually this kind of service, Interruption. I have to answer that call. Now, the interest rate are charges that been made to any loan that you made from the particular financial institution, also the bank. This is what they mean by interest rates. And also the inflation rates means that how much is the value of the money, the purchasing ability that you might have, actual purchasing ability that you might have on a particular times. Okay, then and also the GDP, gross domestic products trends, and also the consumption patterns, and also unemployment trends, and the value of dollars, and also import export factors, and then the demand shift for different goods and services. Because this might indicate on the substitute. The substitute products, okay, the demand shift for different products and services. They might be the substitute products, or even people don't go for your product, the nature of the industry that you're in, they go for other in the industry. So this is what I mean by the demand shift for different goods and services, and also income differences by region and consumer groups. And not forgetting the price fluctuations. And now when we look into the income differences by region and consumer group, it means that it is something that we'll have to understand about the in certain region within this world, the income differences and the consumer group are different. Okay. And then and also the price fluctuations, price of any commodities fluctuations that you need to understand. They might affect your company and the institutions or the entities that you engage with, and also foreign countries' economic conditions. Why are all these? You have to understand, because whatever happened to that country might affect to your country. For instance, it might affect your market, it might affect your supply, it might affect the routes of the movements of your products that you export. It might cost, for instance, the shipping costs, the insurance charges on any export that you try to make. If you have to go through certain countries, that might have economic turmoils, or that don't have a very stable economy. Now, and also the monetary and fiscal policy of the government, like what we have last Friday, we have our monetary and fiscal policy of Malaysian government for 2022. And also the stock market trends, also considered as part and parcel of the economic forces. And then the tax rate variation by country and state, and also sometimes you must understand the tax rate variation by country and state means that the country might have different kind of tax, but the state within the particular country, they might have different kind of tax. So this kind of thing will need to be known. See, particularly when you engage with certain country with many states, like US, they have many states. China, they have many provinces. In Japan, they have lots of prefectures. Now, this kind of thing you need to understand, because different prefectures in Japan might have different kind of tax policy, or even some regulation. They might be economic regulation. They might not be the same from one prefecture to another prefecture. Same goes to China, from one provinces to another provinces. Okay, and and also European Economic Community policies, You know, this policy you need to understand from time to time, and need to know from time to time, because the EEC, they might have certain policy to any country in this world, which might affect the threats of the particular country. And now, the way I look at it, the European European economic community policy not as strong as before. Basically, they have been overshadowed by China's economic power. And same goes to the upcoming Indian economic power, Brazil economic power, and not forgetting the Central Asian countries, particularly like Kazakhstan, you know, Azerbaijan. This is the upcoming new country with certain economic ability, and not forgetting also these country like the Eastern European country, for instance, like Romania, Bulgaria. This is the upcoming new country, Poland. You know, not forgetting the former Soviet Union countries like Lithuania, Estonia. This is the new upcoming countries with certain economic ability, not forgetting the Latin American country like Brazil in particular. This is a new economic power in Southern America that we need to reckon with. And whereas when you look at Southeast Asia, Indonesia is coming up very fast right now due to their huge population. And more companies from either Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand had shifted to Indonesia. Why? Because of the market in Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore already saturated. No? For instance, aircon producing companies, they won't be in Malaysia anymore, because most Malaysian already had aircon, and the turnover of buying aircon might be slow in Malaysia here, because population in Malaysia here are quite small, and it's already there. And most of them already have what they have, you know. And then that's why they're looking into Indonesia as the opportunity. That's why companies shift over to Indonesia. We're hoping that they can take on the untapped market, who has the purchasing ability nowadays. Certain part of Indonesia that does not have the financial buying ability before this, they might have the buying ability now. So that's why a lot of companies shifting over to Indonesia. I'm not saying that our country underperform. I'm not saying that Thailand is underperform or whatnot. It's because that our population are not there anymore. Because the way I look at it, if you look at me, if you ask me, I might see it as, you know, our market are too small for them to leverage and also to sustain. And then the new upcoming economy of Indochina, not forgetting Vietnam in particular, and also Cambodia and Laos. These three countries are the three upcoming new economy. But of course, you have to understand that some political element also. You have to understand that some political element that we need to understand also on top of our economic forces. And then also the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, the policies such as OPEC, they might affect the price of oil in this world. And in last 3-4 years, you can see there was a trade war between Saudi Arabia, Russia, US, and also Iran. Trade war on terms of oil. You know, like it's not 4 or 5 years, about 7 to 6 years ago, they purposely produce as much oil as possible so that the oil prices goes down. And some of the Middle Eastern countries, their production costs are very low. When they produce their oil, countries that drill the oil from the sea, they might have more expensive production capabilities will be affected by this country. They have a cheaper oil production. And then that's why the oil prices at one time, you can see that it goes down so much. and because of the trade war that they might have. They try. They of course lah. They basically, the way I look at it, they're trying to affect the economy of Russia, because Russia is quite dependent on oil too, and when pulling down the price of the oil prices, Russia, will back down to a certain extent, particularly on its policies. But this policy, this strategy never worked, did not work well, and that's why the oil prices go back to what it's supposed to be. And I believe that the oil prices will increase, particularly to this projection or speculation that the world is healing itself due to COVID-19, and economically that's what I mean. That's why demand for energy input are very important in order to produce as many production to help production activities. So in the near future, this year, next year, oil prices might be increased again. Okay. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So,
Yeah. And then now, when you look at this, is from the US perspective. Advantage of a strong dollar leads to lower export for US, lead to higher import for US, and make US goods expensive for foreign consumer, and helps keep inflation low, and then allow US firm to purchase raw material cheaply from other countries, and allow US to service its debt better when the strong is stronger, when the dollar is stronger, and spur foreign investment, and then encourage Americans to travel abroad, and lead to lower oil prices because oil globally is priced in US dollar, and then encourage Americans to spend money because they can buy more for their money. This is a situation when it is a strong dollar, and then now in the future, by 2050, US is going to be an aging population, less white. Okay, 2050, 20% population are more than 65 years old, and then by 2075 there is no ethnic or racial majority in US. That's what US are gearing to. But at the same time, you have to understand, like Japan is an aging population. Majority of the population in Japan are old people, aging people. Those who are this are the majority, and the growth rate in Japan are quite low, and that's why you can see in Japan the old people are still working, and the working age, selagi you mampu bekerja, you disuruh bekerja walaupun you tua. That is in Japan because of the issue of the country is an aging society population. And then in Russia, that country is going towards something that is going to be a female majority country in the future, because mortality rate between gender are very glaring. Male has shorter life cycle compared to female in Russia, and then a lot of a very young age death in Russia. So it affect the demographic profiles in Russia, and you have to understand that the mobility of the population, okay, the mobility of the population in this world, they also affect the social, cultural, demographic, and natural environment. Asia here. Now, the key social, cultural, demographic, and natural environmental variables you have to understand. This might see some of the variables here that in the screen here. I don't have to look at one by one. You have to understand that why certain population goes up and why certain population goes down. And now a lot of people are going toward a very independent life and becoming a successful professional and busy with their work. And then not so much intention on marriage. That's why the population going down to certain countries, you know. And then that's what happened to Japan. People work too much until they don't really become productive in terms of having a lot of children. So, because they are emphasized too much on their career. That's why the population to be like that. And also the number of marriages, you know, and also number of divorces and number of births and number of deaths. This might affect the condition of the demographic profile of certain country, and not forgetting the migration, the immigration spreads. And now, like us in Malaysia here, our populations are being affected due to the immigrations of the country. A lot of people from another country staying in Malaysia, yeah, even in Sarawak here, from Indonesia, banyak duduk ke Sarawak ni. And then not forgetting people from China also. There are a lot of these people in Sarawak. Then eventually it might affect the population, the state, and also this might affect the structure of the demographic profile of population to certain country too. And then and not forgetting the social security programs, life expectancy, also the life expectancy rate, and then the per capita incomes and social media pervasiveness and attitude toward retirements, you know. Now, the younger generation in Malaysia, particularly, started to think of going for retirement at the age of 40. The younger generation looking at, they want to work as much as possible. By the age of 40, they are already retired, and they want to enjoy their life by traveling toward the world. That's what happened in Malaysia, basically. They are already the population who have that kind of mentality, especially among the young one. And this might affect the demands of product and services that the industry might engage with in the near future. We can see this as threats. We can see this as opportunity based on the nature of business that you are in. So relying too much on business that relying too much on business that you can hardly change that business, which is not intended with the changes of the demographic and also the cultural, social condition. This might affect the business that you engage with one day later. That's why it's important that you must be able to see the opportunities and see the threats, so that you should know, should you stay in the business or should you slowly try to shift to other nature of business. That's what a lot of business now are doing that now. And you have to understand also, and then the upcoming of the new young entrepreneur in this world, and those who are very technological based kind of entrepreneur, this might even might even affect the nature of interest of the population to engage with certain knowledge and technological expertise. And again, this is where that being a strategist, we must understand these changes. And if you understand these changes, you can devise a policy and try to take on that opportunities. So the basic understanding on the population is very important, because if you understand the population very well, you can come out with products and services that fit to that environment. You see, these are on the screen are the factors that might affect the demographic profile, their interests, their preferences, you know. And then now you can see here the attitudes of the towards customer service. And now, how are we actually in Sarawak? How are we in Malaysia here? What are our attitude toward customer service? Are we there yet? Are we not there yet? You see? And then population control. How about the policy? How about the awareness of the population? They are aware. Are they aware? And do they practice it? You know? Or they are just become people who like to blame others, but they themselves don't practice it. Banyak sangat kat dunia ni sekarang, tunjuk salah orang dan diri sendiri pun tak betul. They kind of think, they kind of attitudes a lot. So that's why being a strategist on the business of the business organization, you have to understand all this. You have to understand what shapes the mentality of the population, and what should you do in terms of your business in order to be in tandem with that kind of condition. You have to be careful, or otherwise you might see the wrong signal on type of opportunities that you want to engage. And there you are, if you don't have a proper analysis on that opportunity, at the end of the day, you'll be trapped with the false information that you might see, the incorrect information that you might see, and you had already invested so much for the opportunities that does not sustain for a very long time and which does not help you to recover for a long period. So that's why if I want to do business, in my opinion, I always think that never try to do business if it requires huge investment on your business, for instance, the equipment, whatnot. Make sure that whatever you do on that, you must have a fast recovery on anything that you invest with. So that's why you need to understand the signal of the opportunity. It must be a very sustainable, reliable opportunity which you can ride on for a very long time and which can help you to recover back what you invest. So understanding all this need maturity. Understanding all the what been highlighted on the screen here needs maturity. We need to make a lot of people. Sometimes the figure in the internet that you have are not that reliable. Sometimes people just put in things. Or even berita pun bukannya tentu betul juga. Berita yang orang ada share kita, sometimes it's a false information, spam here and there. So that's why we have to be careful in terms of what we understand about the demographic. Now, a lot of people try to write on many things in order to be seen big, but they are not that big. So if you see something that is big, but they are not that big, then you might, and you take on it, you are at risk. So that's why sometimes when you see opportunities, you must have the attitude in order to look further into that kind of opportunities. But of course, don't take too much time in order to analyze that. You must be able to cascade down those opportunities very well, so that you can earn something out of that opportunities. Okay, is there any question you want to ask from this slide?
Okay.
No problem.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No question, huh? Okay. Can I pursue to other slide? Okay.
Yes,
now we
sir.
look into the political. Okay. We look into the political, governmental, and legal forces. The increasing global interdependence among economies, market, governments, and organizations make it imperative that firms consider the possible impact of political variables on the formulation and the implementation of competitive strategies. Now, memanglah whatever political conditions of certain region or certain country might affect the other country as a whole. So that's why there are some countries that like to intervene other country or openly or some country they like to intervene other country openly or silently or hiddenly. There are many ways. So that's why this world there are always conflicts. Conflicts does not arise out of the blues if there are no intervention from the interest party. So this is a thing that you need to understand. What happened in Iraq is because of the game of perception. There was a the weapon of mass destruction, but it is none. It's a game of perception, kan? And it's all about talking about certain country and the leadership of the particular country, whether they are cruel or not to their own people, is not an issue. The issue is that the party want to get something out of the country will kill more people than the actual leader of the particular country. That's why political, we cannot see only from the perspective of one country alone. So that's why you have to understand political or governmental of certain countries are being affected because of the policy of other countries. See, right now, when you look at what happened in Southeast Asia here, you know, the Southeast China Sea is considered as one of the highly tense zone, you see, of that particular country. China have their own policy on their borders. Vietnam have their own policy on their borders. Malaysia have their own policy on the borders. And also in Brunei have their own policy on the borders. Philippines have their own policy on the border. Indonesia have their own policy on the border, particularly near the Natuna Island in South China Sea. Same goes to Thailand. They also have their interest on the South China Sea. You see, all of these considered as the overlapping interests among the countries bordering on this bordering that has the border within this South China Sea. You see, now the existence of the third party again from India, from US, Britain, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand. You see, how do they look at this place? They are not in this place. They don't come from this place, but they are also here in this place. Why does it so? They have their interests. They have the interest of their country also. This is the overlapping interest again in the particular region, and this is the thing that you need to understand basically. Why there are so many overlapping kind of issues in South China Sea, and as long this stability remain and its equilibrium as for now, it is going to be stable. But if anything happens to any of the interests, then it's going to be bad to other country. See, so this is the situation that we have to understand what we have in Southeast Asia. And then not forgetting that when we look into the political government and legal variables, we're looking into the environmental regulations by the government, what are the policy on the environment. Even when you look at South China Sea, we have our own environmental regulation. How about the neighbor? Are they in line with our environmental regulation? How do they handle their waste in South China Sea? How do they catch their fishes in the South China Sea? You see, how do they encroach to other area in the South China Sea? How is going to affect the South China Sea? For instance, I'm giving you the example. To satisfy some environmental regulations, it from one country to another country are not the same. You see, in Southeast Asia. So that's why, we are lucky that we have ASEAN and and we are quite stable to a certain extent as for now lah. And now, not forgetting the number of patents. Number of patents is that, do you understand what does it mean by number of patents? This is regarding the intellectual property rights, the IPR that that the country might have. The more IPR, the more prosperous would be the country be. You see, and then also the changes in patent laws, equal employment laws. These are all the laws and the legal perspective that you need to understand where it might affect your business, whether it is opportunity or might be threats. Then, and the level of defense expenditure, the unionization trends, antitrust legislation. Do you understand what does it mean, the level of defense expenditure? If more countries in certain regions spend more on defense, other countries within that region also will buy and also will try to increase their defense expenditure. See? Why? Because any expenditure on defense of certain country might be seen as a threat to another country, normally. So that's why the level of defense expenditure are part and parcel of the government policy. Right now, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam are spending so much on defense. Taiwan is spending so much on defense. China, tak payah cakap lah, memang dia all out on defense. So, Singapore are increasing their expenditure on defense at this point of time. Why do they do this? You see? So, what happened to other countries that does not increase their defense expenditure? Now, how do businessmen look at this? Are we safe in this region or not? Why do they increase their defense the expenditure in the first place? This shows they are insecure. Why they are insecure? There are some threats or there are some opportunity seeking that they want to do. And this might affect pelbagai negara yang ada di sesuatu tempat tu lah. So this is the thing that you need to understand. And also the unionizations trends, you see. And now certain big company does not allowing members of employee to have unions, for instance. You look at Asia, dia tak benarkan kita mempunyai union. But Malaysian Airlines, all these while, before this, they have been recognizing all these unions. And there you are, you can look into this, the difference between two companies. Relying too much, where is mass compared to Asia? Asia, they don't allow the employees to they are not, you don't see any employees of Asia the unions, involved in union. But in the mass, most of the mass staff before this, they are unions. You see? So this is the thing that you need to understand. Make sure that if you employ people who are the union, who has a very strong union background, you have to work together with the union. See, if there are no unions, you have to understand, does the law permit you not to permit you to stop your employee not to have unions? Benda-benda macam ni lah. And also the antitrust legislations, and not forgetting the price of oil, and also the political conditions in foreign country, and also the US relationship with other country, our country relationship with other country, how it affects our business opportunity. Sometimes you have to understand, not everything we have to think about business opportunity. Sometimes we have to be empathy because of humanity. You cannot look for money at all the time, most of the time, but sometimes you need to look into humanity too. Otherwise, you might be so greedy for money, but you hurt humanity. You see, you might hurt of humanity. So this is the trade-offs that you need to understand. That's why Malaysia, for instance, does not have relationship with certain country. It's because of certain, humanitarian ground to certain extent. You see, and then same goes to certain country. They don't have relationship with certain country. They might have some form of national interest that they are looking into. So this is a thing that you have to understand right now. That's what happened to Sudan now. There is a coup d'etat in Sudan because the previous government is the transitional government of Sudan that work together with the army, and the army now taking over the country. Now, whether it's a good or the bad thing, we don't know yet. You see, and then of course, sometimes people talk about democracy. See, democracy of certain countries, and when you look at Turkey at one time, they want to preserve democracy. The coup d'etat fell, but when you look at Egypt, the coup d'etat success until today is under military power. So now we have to look into, when we look at Sudan, we are yet to understand what's going to happen and what actually happened, what caused it to happen. Yeah, and then now some form of technological forces. There is another variable that you need to understand. The new technologies such as the Internet of Things, the 3D printing, the clouds, mobile devices, biotech, analytics, and then outer tech, robotics, and artificial intelligence are fueling innovation in many industries, impacting strategic planning decisions. This is very glaring and very obvious. Even now, because of COVID-19, we don't see each other in class, but we see each other in this internet. But as a matter of fact, I don't see anybody in the internet because I don't see you. I only see myself in the screen. And some people said we can interact in the through the internet. It's not true. You see, do I interact with you? I only interact myself. And whether you're listening to me or not, I don't know. So this is a thing that you need to understand the good and the bad things. If you the good and the bad things, if you engage on a certain technologies. Right now, many countries are going to robotics because of human resources difficulties. Certain countries that rely on foreign human resources now have to think of other human resources from other countries. Indonesia right now are busy rebuilding their country, and I believe that one day later Malaysia might have difficulty to get Indonesian to work in Malaysia, particularly on the agriculture, especially on the oil palm. Now, are we supposed to go for robotics? You can say we should go for robotics. How many Malaysians are involved in developing robotics technology? Or do we need to buy technology from overseas? You see, when you talk about the Internet of Things, should we engage Internet of Things for agriculture? And so far, how much are we willing to learn on Internet of Things in order to manage agricultural activities? You see, the slashing and the cutting and the burning is still there. See, how should we engage technology in order to avoid all this and have the better yield for our agricultural activities? How are we going to monitor our farm? It also involves Internet of Things. And then how are we going to secure our border? Is it important for us to use drones and robotics? Okay, and how about the biotechs? Are this another opportunity that we should engage with, especially on the some business inputs, for instance, on the fertilizer, on pest? Should we engage biotech on this? And how are we going to engage biotech on this? Who should we engage? Are we willing enough to invest on this? Sometimes people want to get that kind of technology, but they don't invest on the human factors on this. The clouds, it is in thing nowadays. People don't really use external devices or whatever. They prefer to use clouds. Now, is it safe to use clouds? Does our data safe in the clouds? This is another thing that we need to understand. And also the other forms of technology that we might not be able to discuss because it's beyond our understanding of the technology. So this is now, the world now is going toward technology. And how are we going to engage with technology? How does our people are willing to engage on technologies? And how the business should be engaged in technologies? How far the business had adapted technology into their operational system? You see, how far the business look into technology as part and parcel as the business input and processes in order to continuously sustain the quality for their targeted customers. So these many things you need to understand, we need to understand so that we can see this as opportunity and we might see this as threats. Like my case, I have a lot of friends in Japan and also in Switzerland who study together with me. I also keep relation with them. I'm still, they are still my friends and we still share information and some technological ideas. And we work together on certain innovation. I have a Japanese friend. I work together with them in order to innovate things, and we developing our own IPR, intellectual property rights, on our products. So this, so right now, the world are borderless. So I think we need to open our mind, or our thoughts. If we are the CEO of the company, we try to engage internationally, also internationally, so that we are exposed to a lot of opportunities. But of course, I have to be careful with all those opportunities. When you want to open up yourself to opportunities, there are other people who want to go for the opportunities. And how strong are you to want to seize that kind of opportunities? And you have to understand your competitor. How strong are they going to seize the opportunity too? So you have to, sometimes we have to understand all this kind of thing. Now, the technological forces, many firms are now have a chief information officer, the CIO, and a chief technology officer, and who work together to ensure the information needed, to formulate, implement, and evaluate strategies where is available, where and when is needed. Now, what are the results of technological advances? Now, major opportunities and threats that must be considered in formulating the strategies, because we cannot run away from technology nowadays. Because with technology, we can become very efficient, and it can help us to sustain ourselves and try to have the competitive edge over the other player in the industry. But how far you can sustain this if you don't own the technology? You see, because this can affect the organization, products, services, market, suppliers, distributors, competitors, customers, manufacturing processes, marketing practices, and competitive positions. See, this is a thing that you need to understand. Now, the organization, products, service, how are these things can be affected by the technologies? And how are you going to ensure that technology will help you in order to have the competitive edge? Now, can create new markets, result in new and improved products, change and relative competitive cost position, and render existing products and service obsolete. So this is a thing that we have to understand how technology can help us, and also can reduce or eliminate cost barrier between business, create shorter production runs, create shortage in technical skills, and result in changing values and expectations of employees, managers, and customers. This technology can help us on this. For instance, if your cost of production in agriculture are expensive due to human resources are very expensive, with certain technology, you can reduce that when you adapt technology into your process and you don't rely on too much on human resources. And also, with technology also, you can have a better understanding about the employee and also the managers and also customers. Because one of the areas that are very important nowadays, they are one of the areas that are very important nowadays is understanding your customers. How should you understand your customers? With technology, you can understand your customer better. That's why right now, people, when they do business online, they can detect the behavior of their customers. You know, when you buy your air ticket at one time with AirAsia understand your behavior. They will detect you and see how you behave. See, with the with the extensions of hotels, foods, and land transport, this whole package will make that player understand us better. So this is another form of opportunity, how you can use technology in order to secure basic information, huge information about the customers, about the market. And this might enable you to understand them better, and this might help you to develop your new product and services, or you modify your existing product and services in line with what the market really wants. See? Now, can create new competitive advantage that are more powerful than existing advantage. Now, competitive forces. If you look into the competitive forces, looking into an important part of external audit, an important part of an external audit is identifying rival firms and determining their strengths and weaknesses, capabilities. Because any strength are your threats. Any competitor strength are your threats. The competitor weaknesses are your opportunities. So that's why you need to devise a policies, strategies in order to counter it. Now, competitive forces consist of the characteristic of the most competitive. In terms of competitive forces, you need to understand the characteristic of the most competitive companies. Now, normally they strive to continuously increase market share. You see, they want to increase their market share. Once they want to increase their market share, that means they're going to take your market share. And number two, use the vision and mission as a guide for all decisions. Okay, in order to be competitive, is that you always use vision and mission in order to guide your decisions, and also don't whether it's broke or not, fix it, make it better. Don't wait until it broke and you want to repair it. It's not good. Fix it and make it better. Continually adapt and innovate and improve. Acquisition is essential to growth, and also hire and retain the best employee manager as possible, as much as possible, and strive to stay competitive advantage. Strive to stay cost competitive on a global basis. Now, that's why number 7 here, China is, they have all this advantage. India, they're supposed to, but not yet so far. And also, right now, hire and retain best employee and managers as possible. Everybody understand this, but how far are we committed to this? And where I look at it, I see a lot of businessmen. I sit together with the businessmen. Sometimes the business owner, they fail to understand this. Because the mentality of I own the business. You have to remember, the employees also own your business. They live on your business. Whatever happened to your business, they will be affected too. So that's why you have to understand your employees, your manager, you must take care of them. You must look at how you can retain them. You must see that how they can be appreciated and they can be retained to work with you and keep on contributing with new ideas. These are the key questions about the competitors on the slide. I think with the ID that you have now, you can assess yourself to the north and books, you can see a lot about your about this question, and this is the few questions that you need to understand about your competitor, because your competitor will never sit tight. They always want to take on your companies. That is the purpose why we have the competitor want to take over everything. They want to beat you. You see, they don't come here there in order to make you you know, bigger. No, they don't do that. They want to compete with you. They want to take your business. Now, competitive intelligence programs. It is a systematic and ethical process of gathering and analyzing information about the competition's activities and general business trend to further a business on goal. Okay. This is basically that the program, there are three things in the program. There is to provide general understanding of the industry and its competitor. Number two, to identify areas in which competitors are vulnerable and to assess and also to assess the impact strategy action would have on the competitors. Because what the strategy that you adapt will affect your competitor. Eventually the competitor will re-strategize and try to challenge you back. So that's why number two is very important. Because you need to look into what are the impact to your competitors. And also to identify potential moves that a competitor might make that would endanger your position in the market. So that's why you need to do this CI, the Competitive Intelligence Program, so that you know what your competitor intend to do, and what are the possible strengths and weaknesses that you are able to know about your competitors. These are all the important information. Okay. Can we stop for 5 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, today we try to learn about the 5 forces model of competition. Sometimes people call this as the Porter 5 forces. And I believe that some of you might have learned all this before, and it's very important. The 5 forces model of competition consists of the part. First part is the potential development of substitute products, and also the potential entry of new employees, and potential entry of new competitors, and also the bargaining power of suppliers and bargaining power of consumers. And all those 4 variables will affect the rivalry among competing firms. These will be affecting the intensity of rivalry in the middle part of it. There is the rivalry among competing firms. Now, when you look at the 5 forces model of competitions, the first aspect is that it talks about to identify the key aspect of element of each competitive forces that impact the firms. And basically, it evaluates how strong and important each element is for the firm, and also they decide whether the collective strength of the element is worth the firm's entering or staying in the industry. Basically, in other words, this Porter 5 forces, okay, Porter 5 forces is to enable you to understand the degree of competitions in the particular industry, and then and how it helps you to understand about your competitors and also your customers and also your suppliers. And then now the first element they will discuss here is with regard to the rivalry among competing firms. This is the most powerful of the 5 forces and focus on the competitive advantage or strategy over other firms. And in the situation they might create, they might lead to the rivalry among competing firms they are what we suggested are on the slide here, such as the number of competing firms is high, and then when the competing firms are of similar size, and when competing firms have similar capabilities, they are going to compete. And when the demands of industry product is falling, when the demand fall, then the rivalry will increase. And when the product and services prices in industry are falling, and they will, of course, they have to strive and try to compete among each other in order to win more. And also the consumer can switch brand easily. When consumer can switch over to one brand to another brand, this will create the intensity of rivalry among the firms. And when barriers to entering market are low, that means new player can come in anytime. So this will create a rivalry intensity. And then the one is that when the fixed costs are high among competing firms, okay? When the fixed costs are high among competing firms, that means the firm have to sustain and survive in a particular industry in order to survive, because they cannot leave the fixed assets just like that, because the fixed costs are too high for them to leave behind. And then when the product is perishable, when the product you need to push in the market very fast because it is perishable, then the competition among the players might be very high. And the next one is that when rivals have excess capacity, it means that when the competing firm have excess capacity, means that they have the resources in order to compete. So this might lead to the intensity of rivalry, or the competition might be becoming more stiffer. And then when rivals have excess inventory, also this might lead to rivalry. And then when rivals sell similar products and services, like it seems that the products are almost homogeneous, then the intensity of rivalry is very high. When mergers are common in the industry, means that when merger or hostile takeover are common industry, then this might lead to the situation of rivalry. Now, the potential entry of new competitors, that is the barrier to entry, when the potential entry of new competitors, we are talking about the barrier to entry are important, where the quality, pricing, and marketing can overcome barriers. Now, barrier to entry need to gain economic of scale quickly. You see, and also need to gain technology and specialized know-how, lack of experience, and then strong customer loyalty. If the customer are loyal, difficult for new player to come and compete with us. Okay, and then if you have customer loyalty, it's difficult for competitor to come in and compete with us. And if people have a strong preference on your product, on your brands, this means it's not easy for them to buy new other products from other players. So this means the entry barrier is high. And also large capital requirement. If the nature of business require huge amount of investment, eventually it means that whatever business they want to, people want to come into the business, any other player who want to come into that business require huge funds. So this means not everybody can do that. So the entry barrier are very high. What does it mean entry barrier very high? It means that difficult for people to come in, and lack of adequate distribution channels. So this might be the entry of barrier. And also government regulatory policy, which means the government create monopoly or a group of people, players just to be in the market. So that means no other player can do the business. So with the regulation set by the government, not all player can come into this business. Also tariff can be the barrier to entry. So which means other country want to export the product into our country, if there are tariff on the products, so this means the product have difficulty to compete in the market. That's what happened with policy initiated by US toward China. Some of Chinese products have been charged with tariff that enter US market. So Chinese products are not competitive in the market. Same goes to what the US did to Turkey. They create tariff on metal or iron produced by Turkey. So this metal and iron sales from Turkey is affected because of the tariff. Because if Turkey sells for $1 to US and US charge tariff for $1 and the price becomes $2. So it will affect the customers. So, okay. Now the lack of access to raw material also create barrier to entry, and then the possession of patents is very good. I love this because patents is very important in order to avoid other people to come in and compete with you, and also undesirable locations also create the entry barrier and counter attack by entrenched firms, and then the potential saturations of market. This might be the barrier to entry. So when they see this thing, other players see that it is difficult to enter the business that you are in. So that's why when you think of doing business, make sure that you do business that other people have difficulty to come in and compete with you. That's what I mean by entry barrier by Porter. Now, another one is the potential development of sensitive products. Means that pressure increase is when the price of sensitive product decrease and consumer switching costs decrease. Now means that the pressure will only increase if the price of the substitute product decrease. So it means that your product price $1 and the substitute product from $1 it dropped until 50 cents. Eventually this might affect your customer interest, whether they want to continue to buy with you or they might shift over to the price that might decrease. Okay, and then the situation might be more troublesome if your customers, your consumer, switching costs decrease. Switching costs means that if they drop your product and change to a new product, and the cost of dropping your product in order to buy a new product is not very high, then it is very likely that the situation of potential development of the product will come into the picture on your products. Now, and the one is the bargaining power of supplier. What does it mean, the bargaining power of supplier? It means that the bargaining power of supplier will increase when there are few supplier, few substitute, cost of switching raw material is high. So it means that as long there are few supplier, they have the upper hand in terms of the bargaining ability. Because why? You have no choice. There are very few supplier. It's either him or her or him next door. So this is what happened to our contractor. Too many contractors with few suppliers. At the end of the day, our contractor will fall into the bargaining power of the suppliers. And also, if the product that you use as the business input from your supplier are lacking in terms of its substitute, you cannot find any substitute for the product. So this is the situation where the power of the supplier is at the upper hand. And if the cost of switching the raw material is the business input of your product, for instance, you're the contractor, the cement, you cannot buy cement elsewhere. If you buy cement elsewhere, the cost is high. So this means you have to sustain with the existing one. So walaupun harga di sana murah, but the transport cost is high, then the switching cost is expensive lah. So if the price, your price, what your supplier now gives you $10 per bag of cement, and the other supplier giving you $7 per bag of cement, the transportation cost is only RM1. There you are, you can do the switching activities. Because why? The cost of switching cost is very cheap. It's not burdening you. Not to say cheap, it's not burdening you. And it is cheaper for you. And also the backward integration is getting control of ownership and supplier. Means that you can use your backward integration strategy in order to buy over your supplier. Okay. Now, the bargaining power of consumers, basically. Customers being concentrated or buying in volume affect intensity of competition. Means that if the customer have the ability to buy in bulk, then they might have the bargaining power. The consumer power is higher where products are standard or undifferentiated. When means that whatever you sell is almost the same like any other people. Okay, there is no basis of differentiation, and there is no significant value proposition that you want to highlight. This is where the consumer, they might have their power in order to switch to other products by not relying on your product alone. So that's why it's very important that in business we must understand about the significant value proposition they want to insert into the products. When you have that, you can compete with your you can use that in order to be more competitive. The situation where consumer gain bargaining power, if buyers are inexpensively switch, if they can switch to other product and it is not expensive, they will switch. If the buyer are particularly important, means that they are the big purchaser, then they will have the bargaining power. If the seller are struggling in face of falling consumer demand, then the consumer has the bargaining power. Because why? Consumer falling demand is because of customer doesn't want to buy the product or services. It's not a necessity to them. You see? And happen to be the demand on their product services drop. So that means they're going to have a bargaining power. The buyer will have the bargaining power. If the buyer are informed about seller's product, price and cost, if they know about your cost, everything, price. So that's why you have to be very secretive about your cost, your price. If they know about it, they will try to manipulate you as much as possible. Particularly if the buyer are the reseller themselves. And if the buyers have discretion in whether and when they purchase the products, means that they have the discretion on when to buy, how much to buy, then it is going to be troublesome for you. Now, another one is the sources of external information. In order for you to have information about the external environment is going through the unpublished source like customer survey, market research, and also the published sources such as the strategic information, periodicals, journals, reports, government document, abstract books, and whatnot. All of these are the sources of external information. All of these sources can be the sources for you to get the external information in terms of the opportunities and threats. These are examples of sources of information. Okay. Now, another one is the forecasting tools and techniques. Why do you need to know about why are we talking about forecasting tool and technique? Because forecasting tools and techniques help you to forecast, and also to educate assumption about future trends and events, so that you can predict the future trend and event. But bear in mind that no forecast is perfect. No forecast is perfect. There are some forecasts that is reverse to what you predict. You see, so that's why your forecast should have a very good input so that it can come out with a very good, very good suggestion for the forecast. For a good suggestion that helps you to make up a very good decision. So if the forecasts are inserted with inputs that are poorly supervised, evaluated, then you're going to have a poor information for decision making. Making assumptions is, when talking about assumption, the best present estimate of the impact of major external forces is way over which the manager has little, if any, control, but which may exert a significant impact on performance or the ability to achieve a desired result. Then in terms of business analytics, using software to mine huge volumes of data and help executives make decisions. Because any purchases, right now, people buy online and whatnot. This data of transaction help you to understand the customer better. And with this, it can help you to how do you call it, learn more about the behavior of your consumers. To a certain extent, you can understand better also about your suppliers. And this might help you to come up with a very good strategic decision. So for this, I hope you can go back to your respective lecturers, tutor, in order to understand about the EFE matrix. I hope you can learn from your respective tutor in your next coming class with regards to the EFE matrix. Boleh kita ke tidak? You tanya dengan your tutor with regard to the EFE matrix. For my student, I will teach you during the tutorial classes how are you going to use this IE matrix. Clear enough? Any questions so far?
Clear, sir.
Clear, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You go back to your respective lecturer to learn more about the EFE metric, because this metric is very important for external environment assessment. Okay, there are steps in doing it, so it takes time for you to do this exercise. Okay, please go back to your respective tutor on this. Okay, any questions?
No, sir.
No, doctor.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, if that's the case, that's all for today. Thank you very much and take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Prof.
Thank you, sir.
Assalamualaikum.
Bye, sir.
Salam.